After I cheated, my husband never touched me again. For 18 years, we were strangers sharing a house. It wasn't until a routine physical after I retired that a doctor said something that made my world collapse on the spot. "Dr. Evans, how do my results look?" I sat in the sterile quiet of the clinic's office, my fingers unconsciously twisting the strap of my purse. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting neat stripes across the white walls. Dr. Evans was in her 50s, a kind-looking woman with gold-rimmed glasses. At that moment, she was staring at her computer screen, her brow furrowed. She glanced up at me, then back down, clicking through my electronic chart. "Mrs. Miller, you're 58 this year, is that correct?" Her voice was soft, but it set my teeth on edge. "Yes, I just retired." I tried to keep my own voice steady. "Is something wrong? Did you find anything?" Dr. Evans paused for a few seconds, then looked at me with a complicated expression. "Susan, I need to ask you a rather personal question. Have you and your husband maintained a normal, intimate life over the years?" My face flushed hot. The question was a needle, finding the most secret and painful wound of the last 18 years. It was absurd, really. Michael and I had been married for 30 years, but we had been strangers for 18 of them. It was the summer of 2008. I was 40, and so was he. Our son, Jake, had just left for college. Suddenly, the house was empty. Not a physical emptiness, but a psychological one. Michael and I were college sweethearts. We married right after graduation, falling into a comfortable life. He was an engineer at a large manufacturing firm, and I taught English at the local high school. Our life was stable and quiet, like a glass of lukewarm water, no waves, but no passion either. Then, when I was 40, I met Ethan. He was the new art teacher at the high school, 5 years younger than me, with fine lines that crinkled around his eyes when he smiled. He kept a vase of fresh flowers on his desk, hummed tunes I didn't recognize while grading papers, and would offer his umbrella to anyone caught in the rain. He reminded me of the girl I used to be 20 years earlier, the one who would cry over a poem and daydream under the moonlight. "Susan, what do you think of this one?" One afternoon, Ethan walked into my classroom holding a watercolor painting of a hillside covered in wildflowers. "It's beautiful," I said, and I meant it. "Then it's yours." He handed it to me. "I think you're like the wildflowers in this painting. Quiet, but with a life force all your own." That was the sentence that unlocked a door in my heart I had long since bolted shut. We started talking more in the faculty lounge, strolling through the small school garden, grabbing coffee at a nearby cafe. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. The feeling of being truly seen, of being admired, was like rain on parched earth. Michael sensed something was off. "You're working late a lot recently," he said one evening, from his usual spot on the couch. "Just a lot to do at school," I said, avoiding his gaze as I hurried into the bedroom. He didn't press, just sat there in the silent glow of the television. That silence made me feel guilty, but it also made me bolder. The whole thing blew up on a weekend. I'd told Michael I had a faculty workshop, but I had actually arranged to go sketching with Ethan in the countryside. We spent the entire afternoon by a lake, talking about poetry, art, and life. As dusk fell, Ethan suddenly took my hand. "Susan, His words were cut short by a voice. "Mom?" I whipped my head around. Jake was standing a short distance away, his face pale with fury, and next to him stood Michael. My husband's face was a blank mask, but his eyes were fixed on me. My mind went white. It turned out Jake had come home from college for the weekend to surprise me. When I didn't answer my phone, he'd asked Michael to drive him around to my usual spots to find me. They found me here, by the lake, with Ethan. "Home," was all Michael said, before turning and walking back to the car. The ride back was terrifyingly silent. Jake sat in the back, radiating disappointment and anger. It felt like a knife twisting in my heart. When we got home, Michael sent Jake to his room. Then he sat on the living room sofa, lit a cigarette, and looked at me. "How long?" His voice was calm, which scared me more than yelling would have. "I'm sorry." I knelt in front of him, tears streaming down my face. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. I asked you, how long?" He repeated. 3 months, I sobbed. "But nothing happened. I swear, we just talked." "Enough." He stubbed out his cigarette and stood up. "Susan, I'm giving you 2 choices. 1, we divorce. You walk away with nothing. 2, we stay married. But from this day forward, we are roommates, not husband and wife. I stared at him, stunned. Jake has his whole life ahead of him. I don't want this to affect him, he continued, his tone as cold and detached as if he were discussing a business deal. And a divorce wouldn't look good for your job either, so I'm giving you this choice. If you don't agree, we'll get a divorce. I agree. I heard myself whisper, my voice trembling. Then it settled. He walked into our bedroom, gathered his pillow and a comforter, and threw them onto the living room sofa. From now on, I sleep out here. Your life is your own, but in front of our son and in front of everyone else, you will act like a normal wife. That night, I lay alone in our king-sized bed, listening to him tossing and turning on the couch. I had expected him to scream, to hit me, to demand answers, but he did none of those things. He simply shut me out of his world. For the first time, I understood that some punishments were far crueler than divorce. The next day, Michael went to work as if nothing had happened. I called in sick, unable to face Ethan. I sent him a single text. "I'm sorry. We can't see each other again." He replied with one word. "Okay." And just like that, my affair with Ethan was over. But my marriage to Michael was, too. In the years that followed, we maintained a strange, cold peace. He would make coffee in the morning, but wouldn't speak to me. He'd come home from work on time, but would disappear into his study until I was asleep before coming out to the couch. When Jake came home for Christmas break, I asked him what he wanted for dinner, trying to sound cheerful. He just looked at me and said, "Whatever," before shutting himself in his room. That Christmas, the atmosphere was arctic. During dinner, the three of us sat in silence, the only sound coming from the holiday movie playing on TV. "Jake, have some more turkey," I said, trying to put some on his plate. He pulled his plate away, head down. "Dad, how are things at the firm?" he asked, pointedly ignoring me. "Fine," Michael answered curtly. "Good." Jake put his fork down. "I'm full. Going to my room." Watching my son walk away, the tears started again. "Stop crying," Michael said flatly. "Save your energy. We have to go to your mother's tomorrow." I wiped my eyes, a chilling realization dawning on me. This was my life now, playing happy families for the world, living as strangers at home. Time passed, freezing our relationship in place. In 2011, Jake graduated with his master's and took a job in Chicago. The house, now empty of our son, felt even colder. I tried to mend things. I learned to cook his favorite meals, bought him thoughtful birthday gifts, and waited up for him with a snack when he worked late. But he remained a wall of indifference, my efforts bouncing off him. "You don't have to do this," he said coldly one night. "We're just acting. You understand that, right? But I want to make it up to you." I choked out. "Some things can't be fixed." He cut me off. "Susan, I gave you a respectable way out. Just live your life, and don't make me regret my decision." In that moment, I finally understood. He didn't not hate me. He had just buried the hate so deep it had turned to ice. In 2013, Jake married a lovely, kind girl named Sarah. At the wedding, Michael and I stood side by side, smiling and giving toasts. "Your parents have such a wonderful marriage," a guest commented. Michael put his arm around my shoulder, his smile perfectly natural. I could feel his hand, as stiff and cold as a rock against my back. Later, back in the hotel room, he dropped his arm the second the door closed. "That was exhausting, wasn't it?" he said with a sneer. "Yes, it was," I replied, sinking onto the edge of the bed, feeling the absurdity of it all. "Michael, how much longer do we have to keep this up?" "Until we can't anymore," he said, taking off his suit jacket and lying down on the sofa. "I'm used to it." Those two words, "used to it," were like a dagger in my heart. In 2015, our grandson, Noah, was born. Michael gave him his name. With a grandchild, we found a few new topics of conversation. We'd discuss Noah's milestones, pick out toys for him, and laugh together during video calls. "Noah," say Grandma, I'd coo at the phone screen. "That kid looks just like Jake did," Michael remarked from beside me one day. It was the first unsolicited personal comment he'd made to me in years. "Really?" I asked, testing the waters. "Was Jake this smiley as a baby?" "Yeah," he nodded, then said no more. Still, that brief exchange gave me a sliver of hope. Maybe time really could heal. Maybe we had a chance. I was wrong. During Thanksgiving that year, Jake's family came to visit. For once, the mood was warm. "Mom, Dad, are you two doing okay?" "Health-wise?" Sarah asked with genuine concern. "We're great," I smiled. "That's good," Sarah said, looking between us. "Honestly, I've always admired you two. Married so long and still so in love." Before I could respond, Jake slammed his fork down. "Mom, stop acting," he said, his voice cold. "Sarah doesn't know, but I do. You two haven't been husband and wife for years. You're just putting on a show for everyone." The air went still. "Jake," Michael said in a low, warning tone. "Dad, you stop too." Jake stood up. "I'm 28 years old, not a child. Do you have any idea how suffocating it's been watching you two live like this? Do you think I couldn't see it?" Sarah was horrified, tugging at his sleeve. "What are you talking about?" "Sarah, I'm sorry," Jake said, turning to his wife. "I've been hiding this from you. My parents' marriage is a sham. They've stayed together for appearances." "Jake." I stood up, tears welling. "Mom, don't cry." His voice softened. "I know you regret it. I know you've been trying to make up for it all these years. But what about Dad? Has he been happy? Have you ever thought about that?" I was speechless. "What's the point of going on like this?" Jake asked, looking from me to Michael. "It would be better to just get a divorce and start over. Dad's only 47, you're only 47. You both still have a lot of life to live." "That's enough," Michael said, rising from his chair. "Eat your dinner." That Thanksgiving meal ended in silence. Jake's words planted a seed in my mind. He was right. What were we doing besides torturing each other? But I was too afraid to ask for a divorce. I was terrified of losing what little I had left of my family, of Michael, even if all he gave me was coldness. In 2017, I turned 50. The school threw a small party for me. "Susan, how come your husband isn't here?" one of the younger teachers asked. "He's stuck at work," I lied with a smile, my heart aching. The truth was, Michael had no idea it was my birthday. He hadn't acknowledged my birthday in years. When I got home that night, there was a plate on the kitchen table with 2 pancakes, still warm. "Eat," Michael said, emerging from the kitchen. "For your birthday." I stared at the plate. My favorite buttermilk with blueberries. Tears started falling. You remembered?" "I just remember the date," he said flatly. "Don't read too much into it." But I couldn't help it. This was the first thing he had made for me in a decade. "Michael," I sobbed, is there any chance for us?" He was silent for a long time, so long I thought he wouldn't answer. "Susan, some things are in the past for a reason." He turned and walked toward his study. "They'll get cold if you wait." I sat at the table and ate every last bite of those pancakes. They were salty, and I couldn't tell if it was from the batter or my tears. Our 30th wedding anniversary was in 2018. Jake insisted on celebrating. 30 years is the pearl anniversary, Mom. It's a big deal. He booked a nice restaurant. At dinner, Sarah held Noah while Jake raised a glass. "To Mom and Dad, thank you for everything you've done these past 30 years. May you always be this happy together." Michael and I clinked glasses and drank. "Jake, the truth is, your mother and I," Michael started to say. "Dad, I know," Jake interrupted, "but no matter what's happened between you two, in my heart, you are the most important people in my life." Michael didn't say another word, just quietly drank his wine. That night, back home, we lay in our separate spaces, me in the bedroom, him on the couch, the door between us, a physical manifestation of the wall between our worlds. "Michael," I called out into the darkness. "Yeah?" His voice came from the living room. 30 years, I said, my voice thin. Have you hated me for 30 years? The silence stretched on. "I don't hate you," he finally said. "I'm just tired. The word was more heartbreaking than hate. "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears rolling down my temples. "Don't say sorry." His voice was loud now. "It's all in the past." But was it really? The pandemic hit in 2020. Michael and I were both retired, stuck at home together. We saw more of each other in those months than we had in the previous decade. We cooked together, watched the news, followed the case numbers. For a moment, it almost felt like we were a real couple again. "Wear your mask," he'd say before he went to the grocery store. I'd watch him leave from the doorway, that small, everyday concern making my heart ache with a fragile hope. Maybe we could start again. I was wrong. One night, I made a special dinner and opened a bottle of wine. "What's the occasion?" Michael asked, sitting down. "No reason, just felt like having a nice meal with you," I said, pouring him a glass. He glanced at me, then took a sip. "Michael," I took a deep breath. Can we try again? For real this time?" He put his glass down and looked at me. A bitter smile touched his lips. "Try again? Susan, do you think this is a game? That you can just hit reset?" "I know I was wrong." "You were wrong?" He cut me off. "Do you have any idea what these last 18 years have been like for me? Lying on that couch every night, hearing you breathe in the next room, and wondering why I was torturing myself like this? Then why didn't you divorce me?" I cried. "Because I didn't want to hurt Jake, because I didn't want to be the subject of town gossip, because I didn't want you to be humiliated at your job." His eyes were red. "But you? Did you ever once think about how I felt? Did you ever think about what it did to my heart, seeing you with that man?" "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," was all I could say over and over. "Stop saying sorry." He stood up. "Let's just keep things the way they are. It's fine." That night, I threw out the entire meal, along with my last shred of hope. By 2024, Noah was 9. Jake and his family visited several times a year, the boy's energy breathing life into our quiet house. "Grandma, what were you and Grandpa like when you were young?" Noah asked one day, climbing onto my lap. "When we were young?" I stroked his hair. "Oh, Grandpa was very handsome, and Grandma was very pretty. How did you meet?" "In college," I smiled. "Grandpa chased after Grandma for a very long time." "Does Grandpa still like Grandma now?" The question caught me off guard. "Of course he does," I said, with a strained smile. "But I don't think Grandpa likes Grandma very much," Noah said, tilting his head. "He never holds your hand, and you don't sleep together." "Noah," Sarah said, walking over, "don't say things like that." "I'm not lying," my teacher said. "People who love each other hold hands and hug." "All right, time to do your homework," Jake said, pulling his son away. I sat on the couch, my heart a hollow space. Even a 9-year-old could see our marriage wasn't normal. In 2025, I turned 58. My old school district organized a health screening for retired teachers. I went for a full workup, blood tests, x-rays, and ultrasound. "You're in great shape, Mrs. Miller," the nurse smiled. "A little anemic, maybe. Eat some more spinach." I took my results to the gynecologist, Dr. Evans. She looked at my chart, her brow furrowed. "Susan, I need to ask you a rather personal question," she said, looking up. "Have you and your husband maintained a normal, intimate life over the years?" The question made my face burn. Does that have to do with my checkup?" "It does," Dr. Evans pointed to the screen. "Based on your results, I'm seeing some abnormal indicators. If you're comfortable, could you tell me more?" I hesitated, then told her the truth. "My husband and we haven't been intimate in 18 years. Dr. Evans looked surprised, then sighed. 18 years. She took off her glasses. "Susan, do you have any idea the physical impact that can have?" I don't. A long-term lack of intimacy can lead to hormonal imbalances, a weakened immune system, and even increase the risk for certain diseases, Dr. Evans explained gently. And from a psychological standpoint, it takes a significant toll on your mental health. I looked down at my hands, ashamed. "Susan, may I ask why?" Her tone was kind. "Is it an issue with your husband or—" "It's my fault," I interrupted. "I wronged him." Dr. Evans looked at me with pity. "I see." She typed a few notes. "Susan, I need to do a more detailed examination. Do you have time today?" "Yes." "Then come with me." I followed her into an exam room and lay down on the cold table. She moved an instrument over my abdomen, her eyes fixed on a monitor. Suddenly, she stopped. "Susan," her voice trembled slightly, "have you ever had any gynecological surgery in the past?" "No, never," I said, my heart starting to pound. "Why?" Dr. Evans didn't answer, just continued the exam. After what felt like an eternity, she put the instrument down. "You can get dressed. Let's talk back in my office." Once I was seated, she handed me a cup of water. "Susan, I have to tell you something," she said, taking a deep breath. "The exam shows evidence that you've had surgery on your uterus." "That's impossible," I exclaimed. "I've never had surgery." "But the results are very clear." Dr. Evans pulled up the images. "You see this here? This is distinct scar tissue." And She paused, her expression growing even more serious. And what? My throat was tight. And based on the location and formation of the scarring, this surgery was likely performed many, many years ago. She looked at me intently. Susan, are you absolutely sure you have no memory of this? My mind was a chaotic blur. Surgery? What surgery? When? Could it be a mistake? I grasped at the last straw of hope. No. Dr. Evans shook her head. The imaging is too clear. It's not a mistake. Susan, I suggest you go home and think very carefully, or perhaps ask a family member. I walked out of the hospital in a daze, the doctor's words echoing in my head. Surgery. Scar tissue. Many years ago, suddenly, a thought pierced through the fog. Back in 2008, after Ethan, I had a period of severe anxiety. I couldn't sleep, and I was taking sleeping pills. I remembered waking up one morning with a dull ache in my lower abdomen. I'd dismissed it as cramps. Could it be? The more I thought, the more uneasy I felt. I hailed a cab and rushed home. Michael was in the living room, reading the paper. You're back, he said without looking up. Michael, I stood in front of him. I need to ask you something, and you have to tell me the truth. He finally looked up, his brow creasing at my expression. What is it? In 2008, did I have surgery? The color drained from his face. He shot to his feet, the newspaper falling to the floor. My heart sank like a stone. So it was true. I'd had an operation, and I didn't even know it. What kind of surgery was it? My voice was shaking. Why don't I remember any of it? Michael turned his back to me, his shoulders trembling as if he were suppressing a great force. Do you really want to know? His voice was low. Tell me! I nearly screamed. He was silent for a long moment. Just as I was about to ask again, he spun around, his eyes red-rimmed and raw. That year, after I found out about your affair, one night, you took too many sleeping pills. His voice shook. I rushed you to the hospital to have your stomach pumped. While they were examining you, the doctor discovered you were pregnant. My brain buzzed, and the room tilted. Pregnant? I was pregnant? Whose baby was it? I could barely form the question. Michael gave a broken, bitter laugh. The doctor said you were 3 months along. His own tears finally fell. Susan, you do the math. We hadn't touched each other in half a year by then. My legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the sofa. 3 months. Hadn't been intimate in 6 months. The baby was Ethan's. I was really pregnant? I still couldn't believe it. And the baby? What happened to the baby? Michael closed his eyes, tears tracking down his cheeks. I had the doctor perform an abortion. His voice sounded like it was being dragged up from hell. While you were unconscious, I signed the consent form. I had them take the child. My mind was a white void. I had carried Ethan's child, and Michael had ended the pregnancy while I was passed out. How could you? I whispered. How could I? Michael suddenly roared. You have the nerve to ask me how I could? Susan, you were carrying another man's child. What was I supposed to do? Let you give birth to it? Let the whole world know my wife cheated on me and was having another man's baby? His words were knives, stabbing me. But that was a life. A life. Michael sneered. When you were cheating, did you ever think about the life of our family? When you were with him, did you ever think that Jake needed a whole and happy home? I had no response. He was right. It was all my fault. Then why didn't you tell me? I sobbed. Why did you hide it from me? Tell you? Michael wiped his tears away. Tell you what? To make you feel guilty? To make you suffer? Or to make you hate me even more? I wouldn't hate you. You would, he cut me off. You'd hate me for taking away your right to be a mother. You'd hate me for making that choice while you were unconscious. So I chose not to tell you. I thought you would never find out. I thought this secret would be buried with time. But I know now, I screamed, crumbling. I know, do you understand? I know. Michael looked at me, his expression a heartbreaking mix of pain and exhaustion. Yes, you know. His voice dropped to a whisper. So what now? What do you want to do? Do you want to hate me, or do you want to forgive me? He stepped closer, his voice rising with every word. Or maybe you want to go find that man and tell him you once had his child. No, Susan, some things are in the past for a reason. Michael turned away. Just pretend you don't know. We can keep on living like this. I can't, I yelled. I can't pretend I don't know. Then what do you want? He whipped around. A divorce? Fine. Let's go right now and file the papers. I froze. A divorce? Was this really it? Just then, Michael's phone rang. He answered it, and his face instantly changed. What? Jake's been in an accident? My heart seized. Okay, we're on our way. He hung up and looked at me, his face ashen. Jake was in a car accident. He's in surgery at the hospital. My mind went blank. Nothing else mattered. I scrambled after Michael as he bolted out the door. On the way to the hospital, Michael gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. He'll be okay, I said, my voice trembling. Jake will be okay. Michael didn't answer, just pressed harder on the gas. At the hospital, Sarah was standing outside the emergency room, holding Noah, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Mom, Dad, she sobbed when she saw us. Jake. He was hit by a car, saving a little kid who ran into the street. My knees buckled, and I nearly fell. Michael caught me, then walked over to the surgeon. Doctor, how is my son? The doctor pulled down his mask, his face grave. The patient is seriously injured. We're doing everything we can. He paused. But there's something I have to tell you. He's lost a lot of blood and needs an immediate transfusion. He has a rare blood type, and our bank is low. Rare blood type? Michael stared. What type? Type B negative, the doctor said. It's very uncommon. Does anyone in the family have this type? A direct donation would be fastest. Michael and I looked at each other. I'm O positive, Michael said. I'm O positive too, I stammered. Then, the patient's blood type should be... The doctor flipped through the chart, then stopped. Wait a minute. Genetically, if both parents are type O, it's impossible for their child to be type B. 1. The air in the hallway turned to ice. I looked at Michael. His face was a deathly white. Are you both certain you're type O? The doctor asked, confused. Certain, Michael's voice was barely a whisper. The doctor frowned, about to say something else, when the operating room doors burst open. We need a family member, a nurse called out urgently. The patient is critical. We have to get him blood now. I'll contact the blood bank again, the surgeon said, turning to leave. Wait, Sarah suddenly spoke up. I'm B negative. Take mine. The doctor paused, then nodded. Okay, we'll prep you immediately. Come with me. Sarah followed the doctor, leaving Noah with me. I held my grandson, my entire body numb. Michael stood frozen in the hallway, his eyes locked on the doors to the O. R. Michael, I went to his side. Don't talk. His voice was colder than ice. Not until Jake is out of surgery. 2 hours later, the light above the OR finally went out. The surgeon emerged, pulling off his mask. The surgery was a success. He's stable for now, he said, but he'll need to be monitored in the ICU. We all breathed a collective sigh of relief. Sarah, pale from donating blood, came out and weakly asked, How's Jake? He's okay, I hugged her. Thank you, Sarah. Jake was moved to the ICU. We could only see him through the glass, lying pale and still, hooked up to a tangle of tubes and wires. Jake, I whispered, tears blurring my vision. Michael stood beside me, silent as a statue. That night, Sarah took Noah home to rest. The hospital corridor was empty except for me and Michael. Susan, he finally spoke, his voice filled with a despair I had never heard before. Tell me, is Jake my son? My heart stopped. What are you saying? The doctor said it. We're both type O. Jake can't be type B. He turned to face me, his eyes full of anguish. So I'm asking you, is Jake my biological son? Of course he is, I said frantically. Of course he's your son. Then explain the blood type. I don't know. My mind was racing. Maybe the hospital made a mistake. Maybe it's a genetic mutation. Do you really believe that? Michael let out a cold laugh. Susan, when you cheated on me, Jake was already in college. So if he's not my son, that means you lied to me from the very beginning, from 30 years ago. No! I grabbed his arm. It's not true, Michael. You have to believe me. Believe you? He shook my hand off. How can I believe you? You didn't even know you were pregnant with another man's child. How am I supposed to believe you now? But Jake is your son, I sobbed. Look at him. He looks just like you. Like me? Michael's own tears fell. Susan, do you know what my proudest accomplishment has been for the last 30 years? Having a son like Jake. And now you're telling me he might not even be mine. He is. He has to be. Just then, the door to the ICU opened. A doctor came out. "The patient is awake. He's asking for you." We rushed inside. Jake lay on the bed, looking weakly at us. "Dad. Mom." His voice was faint. "Jake." I squeezed his hand. "How are you feeling?" "Okay." He looked at Michael, his eyes pleading. "Dad, I have something to tell you." Michael moved to the bedside, his own eyes red. "What is it, son?" Jake took a shaky breath, then summoned all his strength to say one sentence. "Dad, I've always known. I'm not your real son." The doctor's words had made my world collapse, but this was the final, crushing blow. I stood in the hospital room, watching Jake's pale face, hearing the words he had forced out. The world shattered and reformed into something I no longer recognized. "Dad, I've always known. I'm not your real son." After saying it, Jake closed his eyes, exhausted. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound, a funereal rhythm in the silent room. Michael stumbled back, hitting the wall. His face was ghost white under the fluorescent lights, his lips moving but making no sound. I looked at the man I had lived with for 30 years. I was used to his coldness, to the wall he'd built between us. But now, seeing every line on his face etched with shock and utter despair, I finally understood the fragile heart that had been hiding behind that wall. "What? What do you mean?" Michael finally managed to choke out, his voice raspy and unrecognizable. A nurse, sensing the tension, said quietly, "The patient needs to rest. Perhaps you should step outside." But I couldn't move. I was frozen to the spot. Jake opened his eyes again, staring at the ceiling tiles. His voice was as light as a feather. "My senior year of high school. I was cleaning out the study. I found your old medical files. My birth certificate. My blood type was listed as B negative, but the school health screening said I was B positive." My mind buzzed. I remembered that health screening. Jake had come home looking pale. I asked him what was wrong, and he just said he was coming down with a cold. That was 2006. He was 17. "I secretly had a paternity test done," Jake whispered, a single tear tracing a path down his temple. The results. The probability of paternity was less than 0.1%. Dad, I'm not your son." Michael's legs gave out, and he crumpled into a nearby chair. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking violently. It was the first time in 18 years I had seen him truly break down, not with silent tears, but with repressed, gut-wrenching sobs. That sound was more painful to me than any accusation. "Who?" He lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot, pinning me with a stare. "Who was it?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. "Who? I don't know," I stammered. "I really don't know. Before Michael, I had a boyfriend in college, but we had broken up 6 months before the wedding. After we were married, I was always faithful, until Ethan, but that was 20 years into the marriage. There was no way Jake could be Ethan's son, which left only one possibility. "Michael," I began, each word a shard of glass in my throat. "Before the wedding, I remember now, my bachelorette party, I drank too much. The memories are a blur. A face I had almost completely forgotten surfaced. Mark Peterson, Michael's best friend, our best man. The week before our wedding, he moved to Europe for a job. We never heard from him again. We'd barely even spoken." Michael shot to his feet, his eyes shifting from despair to a terrifying clarity, then to pure rage. "Mark." He spat the name out like poison. "It was him, wasn't it?" I couldn't deny it. The timeline fit, the blood type fit. Mark was B negative. I'd overheard it at a party once, long ago. "You two," Michael's voice trembled. "Before my wedding, in my own home." "I was drunk," I cried, collapsing. The night before the wedding rehearsal, I was so nervous. I drank too much. He brought me home. I don't remember it. I swear I thought it was just a bad dream. "So you married me carrying another man's child?" Michael laughed, a raw, horrifying sound. 28 years, Susan. You lied to me for 28 years. I raised my best friend's son. I made him my pride and joy, gave him everything. You've made me the biggest joke in the world. I didn't know." I fell to my knees, grabbing his pants. "Michael, I swear I didn't know. My period was always irregular. I just thought it was late. If I had known, I never would have." "Never would have what?" He looked down at me, his eyes as cold as a frozen lake. Never would have married me? Or never would have had him? I was silenced. What would I have done if I'd known back then? I had no idea. In those days, being an unwed mother was a profound shame. And Michael, he was so good to me, so sincere. Get out. Michael turned his back on me. I don't want to see you. Michael, get out! He roared, his voice cracking with a rage that had been suppressed for a lifetime. I staggered to my feet and stumbled out of the ICU. The corridor was empty, bathed in the harsh, sterile light of the hospital. I leaned against the wall and slid to the floor, burying my face in my knees. For 30 years, I believed my affair 18 years ago was the greatest sin of my life, a debt I would spend my remaining years repaying. But now I knew that was just an aftershock, a cruel, ironic echo. The original sin had been committed before the story even began, before the wedding march played, and I, the sinner, had lived in blissful ignorance, stealing 28 years of Michael's life. I don't know how long I sat there before someone sat down next to me. It was Sarah. She gently put an arm around my shoulders. "Mom, Jake told me everything." Her voice was soft. He said that no matter what the blood test says, you will always be his only mother, and Dad will always be his only father. I looked up at her young, sad face. "Sarah, don't you hate me?" Sarah shook her head. "Hate won't change anything. Jake needs you both. Noah needs his grandparents. Mom, some things can't be undone, but we can still choose how we face the future." Her words were a lifeline, but I couldn't grasp them. Did I deserve it? Did I still have the right to be Jake's mother? To be Noah's grandmother? 2 days later, Jake was moved to a regular room. Michael stayed by his side constantly. He spoke to no one unless absolutely necessary, especially not me. He looked at me as if I were a stranger, no, worse than a stranger, as if I were the person who had betrayed his entire world. I brought meals and clean clothes to the hospital every day, but I only lingered outside the room, sometimes peering through the small glass window. I would see Michael sitting by the bed, holding Jake's hand, the two of them talking in low voices. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see the tears on Jake's face and Michael's red-rimmed eyes as he tried to remain composed. It was a beautiful, heartbreaking scene, a father and a son whose bond was deeper than blood. And I was the one who had nearly destroyed it all. A week later, Jake was discharged. We didn't go back to our house. We went to Jake and Sarah's place in Chicago. They gave the master bedroom to Jake to recover, while Michael and I were put in the guest room. We were under the same roof, but 1,000 miles apart. That night, I heard a noise on the balcony. I pushed open the sliding door to see Michael standing there, a cigarette glowing in his hand, looking out at the city lights. He had quit smoking over a decade ago. "Michael," I said softly. He didn't turn around, just took a long drag from the cigarette and slowly exhaled. "Susan, I've been thinking." His voice was unnervingly calm. "I wanted to hate you. I wanted to kill you. I wanted to burn everything down and end it all." My heart clenched into a tight knot. But Jake said to me. He turned, the ember of the cigarette illuminating his face in the dark. "Dad, for the last 28 years, the love you gave me was real, and the love I gave you was real. That's enough." The early winter wind blew, and I hugged myself against the chill, waiting for my sentence. "So I've decided to let you go," Michael said, crushing the cigarette against the railing. "And to let myself go, too." "Can we?" I choked out. "Can we go back?" "Go back?" He laughed, a sound hollowed out by exhaustion. "Every single day of our past was built on a lie. There's no going back, Susan." "Then what do we do?" Michael was silent for a long time. In the distance, a train horn blew, a long and lonely sound. "Jake needs time to heal. Noah is still young. He needs a complete family," he said slowly. "So we'll keep acting, just like we have for the past 18 years. In public, we are a loving couple. We are Jake's parents. We are Noah's grandparents." "And at home?" I asked, my voice trembling. He looked at me, his eyes empty. "At home, we are roommates. Just roommates. This time, for real." He turned and went back inside, leaving me alone on the cold balcony. That night, I couldn't sleep. I remembered him saying those same words 18 years ago. I now realized that wasn't the worst possible outcome. The worst outcome was this, where even hate was a luxury, replaced by the tired, mechanical motions of a partnership. But this time, I had no right to complain. I had no right to even feel sad. I deserved this. The days passed. Jake recovered slowly and started working from home. Noah would run home from school, first into his grandpa's arms, then to mine. The sound of his innocent laughter was the only truly warm thing in that house. Michael was polite and distant. He'd say thank you and, excuse me. If I coughed, he would silently pass me a glass of water, but there was no more eye contact, no more unnecessary words. We were two robots programmed to perfectly perform the roles of a happy couple and doting grandparents. Sometimes, late at night, I would hear a muffled cough from his side of the room, or a heavy sigh. I would lie in the darkness and picture him, the man who had been proud his entire life, now forced to swallow this immense humiliation and pain in private every single night. And I didn't even have the right to knock on his door and say I was sorry. Christmas came, and we went back to our hometown. Friends and family gathered, and the house was full of noise and laughter. "Michael and Susan, you two are still so in love," my cousin said wistfully. 30 years, and you look as happy as newlyweds." Michael smiled and put his arm around my shoulder, a gesture so practiced it looked completely natural. "Yep," he said, "she's the one for me." I leaned against him, smelling the faint, familiar scent of tobacco on his shirt. He'd started smoking again. His arm was strong and steady, but I knew that strength wasn't there to hold me. It was there to hold up a world that was about to shatter. At Christmas dinner, Jake stood up to give a toast. "Mom, Dad, thank you for everything you've done for this family." He looked at us, his eyes glistening. "I love you." Michael raised his glass and downed it in one go. I took a sip of my wine. It burned my throat, and I started to cough. Michael gently patted my back. The gesture was tender, but his eyes were looking somewhere far away. In that moment, I understood. Some punishments aren't loud arguments or cold shoulders, they are a gentle distance. He was right beside me, but he was already a million miles away. After the holidays, we returned to Chicago. Life continued on its seemingly peaceful path until one afternoon in March. Michael called me into the study. "Susan, sit down. We need to talk." I sat, my heart pounding with anxiety. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting dappled shadows on his face. "I've booked a flight to Oregon for next week," he said calmly. "By myself." My stomach dropped. For how long?" "I don't know. A month, maybe longer." He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "I need some time, to be alone, to think." "What about the family?" "Jake is fine now. Sarah is here for Noah." He paused. "You take care of yourself." I knew this was his farewell. Not a divorce, not a final break, but a long, slow escape. From the moment he learned the truth, he had been on the run. "Michael," I found the courage to say, stopping him as he turned to leave. If time could go back, to the night before the wedding, I would." "Don't say if," he cut me off, his voice weary. "In the last 30 years, you've said if too many times. But time only moves forward. The mistakes we've made, the wounds we've caused, they're carved into our bones now. All we can do is carry them and keep walking." He reached the door, then stopped, his back still to me. "When I get back, we'll talk about what comes next." The door closed softly. I sat in the study, staring out at the bright spring day, tears falling silently. I didn't know if he would ever come back, or what kind of next he was talking about. But this time I wasn't praying for forgiveness. I wasn't hoping to go back. 18 years ago, I thought the worst punishment was him no longer touching me, that we were strangers under one roof. Now I finally understood that was only the prelude. The real punishment was the truth coming to light, and the insurmountable wall it built between us. On either side of that wall stood two people, irrevocably changed by time and lies. And I will spend every day of the rest of my life paying off a debt that I incurred 30 years ago. Whether he comes back or not, whatever our end may be, this is my story's ending.